Okay, let's switch on Kali Linux system. Okay, so today we are going to start with the another module, that is SQL injection. Okay, so there are various types of SQL injection. Okay, so first of all, what we are going to do is we are going to do SQL injection authentication bypass or SQL injection login bypass. This SQL injection login bypass or authentication bypass, as you can say. Okay. So before understanding SQL injection, authentication bypass or login bypass, first of all we need to understand how does a normal login process looks like. Okay. So when I say login process, let's write here login process. How is it going to look like? So there's an application over here. Yeah. So there's a desktop over here. Okay. In this system, you will be opening up a website. Okay. Have a desktop here. In this, you have a website. Okay. Some website. That website is going to have some login page. Okay. Let's create everything inside the system only. So there's a login page here. Okay. That requires your login credentials. You enter something in those credentials. Okay. You enter your username. You enter your password. What happens next? You send those credentials to the server. Okay. Those credentials are sent to the server. Credentials like username and password. Okay. Now when server receives those credentials, how server is going to behave? Server is going to send these credentials to some kind of a database server that is going to run behind the scenes. Okay. This is your DB server. Okay. These credentials are now going to be sent to the database server. Now, database server is going to check these credentials. Okay. That if this username and this passwords are present in the database or not. If these credentials are found inside the database, so the database server replies to the web server with a true, that okay, yes, I have found a match. Okay. If it replies with a true, the web server grants the access. Okay. Access granted. or if the server replies with a false, that no, I did not found these credentials, this username and password do not match, it is going to say denied access. Okay. Okay. Now let's say this was the process. Okay. This was the login process or authentication process. Okay. Now the question arises, when these credentials are sent to the database, what kind of query is going to run to check those credentials? So let's write a simple SQL query here. Okay. I hope you all have read about simple SQL syntax that I mentioned yesterday. So it is going to be a select statement, select star from users where, so select star from users where using is equal to something and password is equal to something. Okay. If I need to elaborate this thing, if I am supposed to explain this thing, so this is your all columns, right? Users is your table name containing credentials. Okay. And then where is your conditional statement, hmm, and is your logical operator, hmm, or I would say operator. And how does and behaves? Both the input needs to be true, then only and is going to return a true output. Okay. I hope you know those logical operators and get and or get. Okay. Similarly, I can provide the column names as well here, like uname, comma, password from. These are your now your column names. Okay, now whenever a user is going to end user is going to input some credentials, where are those credentials going to go? This is the place where those credentials are going to go. Okay, this is the place where it is going to be entered. Yes. Okay, so as an end user, I cannot control the query that is going to run behind the scenes, that is going to run at backend. Okay, I can only control this part of the query. So these are your input parameters on the screen. Okay, so now I have opened here my Kali Linux system. Let's open a browser. Let's go to php.vuln.com. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to input some malicious payload here in this field here. Okay, so that I'm able to bypass the authentication. Okay, let's go to your profile. There are username and password credentials that are required here. So what I'm inputting here is my payload one or one is equals to one. It's not make me fun. So this is the payload that I am going to enter here. Okay, as you can see here, I'm simply going to copy this payload and paste it in the password as well. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on login. Don't save. Okay. And here you can see that I have successfully logged in. There's a logout option that is appearing here. Okay. So I've successfully bypassed the login request. Okay, but how did it happen? That is the question. So let me first of all write my payload here. Okay, what was my payload? My payload was this 1 is equals to 1. Okay, this was my payload. Now let's select this stuff. So what happened when I entered this payload in the login credentials? Okay. Let's see. Let's take this user input. This is my username that I entered here. Okay. And then comes my rest of the query. This gets appended here, and then the same payload was entered in the password. Okay. So here you can see how my backend query is going to look like when I'm going to enter the payload. Okay. So if we analyze this thing, how this payload is making sense and why I entered this is because, see, as we know that for a successful login, there's a probable AND gate that is used here, AND condition that is used here. That is, both of these condition, one on the left side, one on the right side, both of these condition needs to be written true. Then only collective result is going to be true. And when collective result is going to be true, we are going to be allowed access, successful login. Okay. Okay. So hence I entered this payload. Okay. Now let's understand this payload. If I talk about this payload independently, this does not make any sense because there's a disbalance in the apostrophes here. If I add another apostrophe here at the end and at the beginning, now there's a perfect match. Okay. And now if I start evaluating this condition, you can see 1 is equals to 1. So when I ask you this question, is 1 is equals to 1 question mark true or false? What is going to be the answer? The answer is going to be true, right? So one side of this condition or becomes true. Okay, and in case of or, we know that only one side of the condition needs to be true. Okay, and we do not care about the other side of the condition. Okay, if one side of the condition becomes true, or is going to output me an overall true output. Okay, so the whole output of or is going to become true. And when whole output of this statement is going to become true, that means that here, this one side of the and I have made it true, and the same condition applies on the other side as well. That is also I have made true. Okay. And now as I have mentioned that both of the condition needs to be true, I have made both of the conditions true. The overall output is going to be true, and hence I am allowed access to the system. Okay. And hence I was able to do an authentication bypass. Okay. So this was your SQL injection authentication bypass, or login bypass as you can say. Any doubt? Anything that is not clear? Anything that you want me to reiterate?
Discussion, repeat this query again.
Sorry, I didn't got you.
This query, select you name this second query we run.
Yeah. So actually we are not running this query. Okay, this is the query that we have guessed. Okay, behind the scene, somewhat like this query would be running. It's like select statement, then it is going to select the username and password column from the table name called users, where that is a condition, where it is going to check the condition that the username is equals to the entered parameter that I have written in the orange, and is another conditional operator that is going to check if left hand side and the right hand side, that is username and password, both of them are true or not, and password is equals to then again user input there on the orange color. Okay, so I have specially crafted payload over here, that is 1 or 1 is equals to 1, that I have entered here, and I have been able to make the whole query true and get a overall true output, true result. Okay, so let's proceed further then. Okay, if this thing is clear, let's go ahead. Okay, so that was your authentication bypass. Okay, let me just log out from here. Let's explore this website more. Go to browse artist, browse categories, posters. So here, when I was browsing this website, I can see that there is a get base value here. That is question mark cat is equals to 1. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a union select SQL injection. So that's another type of SQL injection that we are going to do. Okay, and that's probably going to be the only advanced SQL injection that we are going to do. So how are we going to start? Okay, let me close this thing first. Is this an incognito mode? No. Let me open a new private window here. Test php.vuln web. Browse categories, posters. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an SQL injection union select. Let's write it here. Union select SQL injection. Okay. So the first step is going to be fuzzing. Okay. fuzzing is basically providing random nonsense data and observe the behavior of the application. Okay. So what we are going to do before that fuzzing event, let's just find an input parameter. Okay. First of all, we are going to find an input parameter and then we are going to start with the fuzzing. So here we have found the input parameter as cat is equals to 1. Okay. And what does fuzzing mean? Fuzzing means providing random nonsense data. So in random nonsense data, what we are going to do is we are going to provide a long integer string. Okay. Or else we are going to try inputting something long string of alphabets. Okay, then we are going to try with long alphanumeric string. Okay, we will see how the application is behaving basically. Okay, long alphanumeric string, some special characters like exclamation mark, brackets, apostrophes, okay, inverted commas, semicolons, commas, dots, stuff like that. Okay, so let's start fuzzing it and see how the application behaves. So let's provide a long uh, numeric string. Okay, no output. Long alphanumeric string. So when I provided the alphanumeric string, it says error unknown column blah 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 in where clause warming blah, blah. So from this here, what I can understand is there's a MySQL server that is running behind the scenes. Okay, this is the important thing that we are going to derive from here. Okay. Okay. So what we are going to do now is we are going to generate the error intentionally. Okay. So this is one error that we generated. Okay, so we know that MySQL server is running behind the scenes. MySQL database is running. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to provide the input of special characters. Like let's say it was 1. Let's provide an apostrophe here. I provided an apostrophe. It says another error. You have error in SQL syntax. Check the manual that correspond using other. Okay. So what did I got to know from this point is that I have successfully been able to break the query. Okay. So as you know in programming language, these brackets, commas, apostrophes, inverted commas, all of these things are used in pairs. Okay. So if I'm going to disbalance these inverted commas or brackets, the query is going to become erroneous. Okay, it is going to generate error. That is not going to become that is going to lead to an invalid query. Okay, that is all about breaking the query with special characters. Okay, so I just entered this apostrophe. Okay, So now I need to find the number of columns. So for finding the number of columns, what we are going to do is we are going to do order by clause. Okay. So for enumerating or finding the number of columns, let's just type finding the number of columns here using order by clause. Okay. So the query is going to look like order by one. Okay. Order by two. Order by three.
This order by is we are writing the column number.
Right. So as I have mentioned that you need to study that thing, let me go back here to the W3 schools. Let's see. SQL. So if you would have read about order by clause, so order by clause is generally used to reorder the output. Okay, to reorder the output in ascending or descending order in a new fashion, basically. Okay. Try it yourself. Let's click on try it yourself. Before that, you can see this is the sample database here, and how many number of columns exist in this database. So we've got 7 columns here, right? Customer ID, customer name, contact name, address, city, postal code, and country. Okay. So when I want to reorder or rearrange this output, I can do order by. Okay. Order by column name. It's like order by customer ID, order by customer name, order by address, order by city, so on. Okay. So that was one way of doing an order by. Another way of doing an order by is referring these columns as their index numbers, like 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 for first column, 2 for second column, 3 for third column, 4 for fourth column. Okay. So I can try doing this thing here as well. So when it says select star from customers, order by country, run SQL, this is the output. It is rearranging the output in the alphabetical order of country column. Okay, I can see the countries starting with A at the beginning, and then there are countries starting with B followed up. Okay. Similarly, I can do order by customer ID, that is on the leftmost. Okay. Customer ID, run SQL. So you can see that it has now been reordered on the basis of customer ID column. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to refer to the country column without the name of the column. Okay. So the country column is the 7th column. Let's type 7 here. Order by 7. Run SQL. And you can see that I have successfully been able to order by it, rearrange it. Okay. So the same thing is what I'm doing here. Okay. What if I do, so this query is going to work order by 1, order by 2 it is going to work, 3 is going to work, 5 is going to work, 6 is going to work, 7 is going to work. But what if I do order by 8? So if I do order by 8, this is going to throw me an error. Okay, because the maximum number of columns that exist in the database is 7, and there is no column number 8 here. Okay. So the same technique I'm going to use here to find the number of columns. Okay. So I'm going to keep on repeating this thing order by 1, order by 2 until the point where when I start receiving an error. Okay. When I receive an error, then I will be able to realize that okay, there's like n minus 1 columns that exist there. Okay, let's do order by 1. So it works. Simultaneously, you can see your output getting rearranged as well. Okay, reordered. Order by 2, order by 3, order by 4, order by 5, order by 6, lost connection. Yeah, it's working now. Order by 10, order by 11. So that means that there are at least 11 columns. Let's try doing order by 12. So when I did order by 12, it says unknown column 12 in order clause. Okay, so what do we understand from this point? Hmm. So it said 12 is unknown column. So that means number of columns are 11, right? Because order by 11 was working perfectly fine, but order by 12 was not working right. Getting my point? गाइस समझ में आया मैंने नंबर ऑफ कॉलम्स कैसे निकाले?
Yes, Rishabh.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Rishabh.
ओके कूल. सो ठीक है, नंबर ऑफ कॉलम्स मैंने निकाल लिए. अब मैं यहाँ पे पोटेंशियल इंजेक्शन करना स्टार्ट करूँगा. ठीक है, अभी तक मेरी पूरी कैसी लग रही थी? इट वाज लाइक कैट इक्वल्स टू 1 order by 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 stuff like that. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do question mark cat is equals to 1. Now I'm going to do union select. Okay. Union select, union select 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11. Okay. So as I told you to read about union, so union is another operator that is basically used to select select more than one query at a time. Okay, so that I can also add another select query, I use union. Okay, the condition while using union is that the number of columns on the left side needs to be equal to the number of columns on the right side. So that's why I have mentioned the number of columns as 11 here. Okay, union select, find the vulnerable columns. So let's run this query. Let's go here. Union select 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 hyphen hyphen hyphen. That is your comment sign. Okay, I just want to comment anything if there is anything after this thing. Okay. Simply press enter now. Okay. Okay, and here you can see the output. So when I'm seeing the output, I need to scroll all the way to the down, okay, and I can see a bunch of numbers appearing here, right? Here you can see a bunch of numbers that are appearing here, that is 7, 2, and 9. So these are basically your vulnerable columns. Okay. That is 7, 2, and 9. So this basically tells me that currently on this page, the data that is being fetched is from the column number 7, the column number 2, and the column number 9. So if I'm going to inject my query inside one of these column numbers, then there is a chance that I can see the result. Okay, I'll start injecting now. These are your columns that have been found. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try injecting with the database function or the version function. So these are like standard functions for MySQL. Okay, so the database function basically out is going to output me the name of the database that is currently used, and the version function is going to output me the version of the database. Okay, so let's inject this query 7, 2, and 9. Okay. So let's take 7 column as an example. Remove the 7th column and type here data base and press enter. When I press enter, here you can see at the place where 7 was appearing up, now it says acuart. Okay, so what is acuart? Acuart is basically the name of the database that we have just figured out. Okay. This is the name of the database. Similarly, what I can do is in the second parameter, I can type version. So here where second output from second column was appearing, here I can see the version of the MySQL that is being used here. Okay, let's go back. So the database name is equals to acuart. Okay, that we have figured out by injecting into this column. Okay. So now, how does data gets arranged in the database? When I said in the database, the structure is like there is going to be a database. Okay, there is going to be a name to it. Inside there is going to be tables, and tables there are going to be columns, and inside columns there is going to be your data. Okay, that's how databases are structured. So if I want to fetch some data, okay, before that I need to know the column name from which I want to fetch the data, and before knowing the column name I need to know the table name. Okay, and before knowing the table name I need to know the database name. So first thing that I have enumerated is my database name, that is acuart. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to find out the table names. Okay, how I'm going to find out the table name? That is going to be cat is equals to 1 union select 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 table underscore name from table underscore name 8, 9, 10, 11 from information underscore schema dot tables where table underscore schema is equals to acuart. Okay, so this is going to be my injection query that I'm going to use. So what I'm doing here is there's a information schema. It is like a standard table, standard database that exists in every MySQL database. Okay, so information schema is like um, as the phonetically it sounds information schema. Okay, so information schema is going to hold the information of all the tables and all the column names that exist in that database. So now what I'm doing is I am trying to fetch the table names from the information schema. Okay, for that I'm going to use this query. Let's go to my Kali Linux. Start writing it here. The name of the database. Okay, let's press enter. And in this output, you can see where the seventh column was reflected. Now you can see the the name of tables. Okay, name of different tables that exist in this database called acuart. Okay, so the table names are like cards, category, featured, artist, hmm, users, products, pictures, guest book. Okay, so what I found here is DB name is equals to acuart. Table names are like category, artist, users, guest book, models, products, pictures, products, pictures, cards, and features. Cards and features. F-E-A-T-O-R-S. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, these are the right table names that I have figured out. Okay, let's do one thing. Let's make everything in one line. Okay, so now as I have figured out the table names, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to figure out the seventh step, that is the column names. Okay, so for column names, the query is going to be like cat is equals to 1 union select 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 as column underscore name 8 9 10 11 from information underscore schema dot columns where table underscore name is equals to followed by the table name. So I want to, first of all, I need to decide which table out of these tables seems to be juicy or important to me, having some sensitive data. Okay, that is going to contain some juicy data. So users table probably is going to have some interesting data. So I'm going to type users here, users table. Okay. So I'm going to use this query to fetch out the column names from the information schema, specifically to a specific table, that is users. Let's go here. Column, select column underscore name from information underscore schema. Dot columns where table underscore name is equals to acuart. So that is not the table name, that is the database name. I need to provide the table name as users. Just confirm the table name from here once. Yeah, users is the table name. Okay. So let's press enter now. So when I press the enter, let's see what kind of output can I see. So here I can see some new data, that is like CC, address, email, name, phone, pass, and uname. Okay, so these are actually the column names that exist inside the users table. So let's take a note of it as well. Okay. Columns inside users table. Okay, that are like uname, pass, CC, phone, address, pass, CC, address, uname, email, name, cart, email, name, cart, and that's all. Okay, so I have figured out the number of columns inside a specific table as well. Okay, so these are the number of columns. This is the table name that we are enumerating. Okay, so as now we know the database name, we know the table name, and we know the column names. So now it is going to be easy for us to fetch the data out of the database. So let's build the query for fetching the data. Cat is equals to 1 union select 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 7 8 9 10 11. This was the original query, and now I'm going to inject in the 7th parameter. I need to type the column name. So let's just, I want to know the username, and in the second uh, column I want to see the password. So let's just get the password here. Pass 1 2 3 4 5 7 8 9 10 11. Okay, from table name, that is users. Okay, uname, pass from table name, that is users. This is the name of the table. And now simply press enter. When I press enter, I can see the username and password appearing in my output. So the username and passwords are like test and test. This is my username and password.
Rishabh, why we are using this triple hyphen at the end of query?
To comment out, that is a comment. Okay. So in my SQL, comments are like hyphen 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 or hyphen hyphen plus or the hash symbol. Okay.
Okay.
To query out anything that is going to be, if the developer is appending anything after this query, that is going to get, that is not going to be executed, that is going to be commented out.
Okay.
Okay, Amit.
Okay.
Yeah, these are all your comments. This is standard comment syntax. Comments. Okay, now let's go back to my profile, your profile, and I can verify the credentials here as well. Please use the username test and the password test. Signups are disabled. So actually there is only one username and one password that exists in the database that we have dumped out as well. But if there were more than one passwords and one username, more than one username, then also we would be able to uh, dump it. Okay. So this was your union select injection. Okay. Union select SQL injection. Any doubt so far? Okay. Anything that you would like to ask? So now this was the manual method. Okay. Now I'll show you the more easy method, that is the automated method for performing an SQL injection. So before that, here as you see that at the end we just dump the credentials, that we just dump the data from two columns of a single table. Similarly, we can repeat this whole process for dumping out all the columns of this users table, and then we can similarly dump out all the data from other tables as well. Okay, just like I did for users table, you can select any other table as well. You can get the column names from other table and get the data out of the other tables as well. Okay, so let's see the automated method then. So for automated method, we need to uh, get the target URL that where we expect the injection. So this is my target URL here. Control A, Control C, minimize it, open a terminal, increase the font size. Okay, so the tool is your SQL map. Okay, this is the tool that we are going to use for automated SQL injection. So how am I going to use it? I just type SQL map followed by hyphen u to give the target URL, paste the target URL, okay, followed by some other flags. So let me just show you the help menu of it. SQL map hyphen h, SQL map hyphen h, the help menu. Hyphen u for URL. Okay, so here I can use uh, different flags, okay, to enumerate different tasks. Like if I want to enumerate the tables, I'm going to type hyphen hyphen tables. Okay, let's just type hyphen hyphen tables now. For now, press enter. So now what it is going to do is it is going to give me the table names only. Okay, okay, so here it has enumerated the table names. Okay, and you can see there are a total of 8 tables that it has found: artist, cards, category, featured, guestbook, blah blah blah. Now what I can do is I can select hyphen t and provide the table name like users, and then I can do hyphen hyphen dump. Okay, okay, let me decrease the font size. So here you can see that the database has been dumped. Okay, although it was a because it was a long table and my text size was big. Let me just do it again. No. So here you can see the data that have been dumped. Okay, the CC, card, name column, all the details. Okay, similarly I can do it for other tables as well, like for category. Okay, for artists, stuff like that. Or what I can do is I can simply provide the target URL and just provide this single flag that is hyphen hyphen dump. Now what this hyphen hyphen dump is going to do is it is going to dump me all the data of all the tables of all the columns. Everything is going to be dumped. Okay. So it has already dumped me data from various tables here. So from here you can see that the data from pictures table is being dumped here. Okay, this is the data from pictures table. Here another table, that is featured table. Data from featured table is being dumped here. Okay, it's an empty table. You can see there were two columns inside the featured table, that is pic ID and feature text. Both of them are empty. Data from cards table is dumped here. There are three columns in the card table and everything is empty. There is no data in the card table. Data from the products table, you can see it here. Okay, how many columns are there? 1 2 3 4 5, 5 columns and 3 rows of data. Okay, data from artist table is here. Okay, data from guest book table is here. That's an empty table. From category table is here. Some dummy data is present inside the categories table. Lorem ipsum dollar set emit. Okay, still enumerating more data. So what it is doing here is the SQL map asked me that SQL map has find out some hashes inside the database. Now, do you want to crack those hashes? That is what they are asking. Okay, so I said, okay, crack those hashes for me. Let's see if it is able to crack any hash, although it would not be able to crack any hash for now. So similar to SQL map, there is a tool called Hubage. Okay, that is a GUI based tool that is generally used on Windows machine, that you can also use for automated SQL injection attacks. Okay, so here all the data from all the database have been listed, and you can see the users table here clearly. You can see the username, the password, the other columns, data from other columns as well. Okay, okay. So the commands for SQL map are like SQL map -u for URL, hyphen capital T, hyphen hyphen tables for enumerating the tables. Once you got the table name, you can type the table name, use this, and do an hyphen hyphen dump to enumerate the data out of the specific table, or you can just type hyphen hyphen dump to everything. Okay, Okay. Any doubt? Anything that is not clear? You can ask me now.
All good for now, but it's a bit heavy lecture.
Actually, that's why I asked you to read the SQL syntax, because I know even after reading that syntax, if you would have not read that syntax, so आज फिर सब ऊपर से गया होगा. अगर बिल्कुल भी syntax नहीं आता है, बिल्कुल भी SQL नहीं आता है, तो कुछ समझ में नहीं आएगा. थोड़ा बहुत SQL आता है तो थोड़ा बहुत समझ में आएगा. बाकी मैं ये सजेस्ट करूंगा कि जो मैंने आपको इतना बताया है सेशन में, ठीक है, आप इसकी प्रैक्टिस करो. ठीक है, एक बार इतनी प्रैक्टिस करो, रिपीटेडली प्रैक्टिस करो. ये क्वेरीज जो है आपको ऐसे एकदम मेमोराइज हो जानी चाहिए कि मेरे को टेबल्स ऐसे एनुमरेट करनी है, कॉलम्स ऐसे एनुमरेट करनी है. ठीक है, तभी आपको थोड़ी एक बेटर अंडरस्टैंडिंग होएगी. ठीक है. कल थर्सडे रहेगा, हमारा वीक ऑफ है, तो आपके पास सफिशिएंट टाइम है इसको प्रैक्टिस करने के लिए. प्रैक्टिस करो. कोई डाउट होए फ्राइडे के सेशन में आप मुझसे पूछ सकते हो. ठीक है ना.
Okay.
ठीक है ना. मैं आपको जो है